Good evening, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar. Sudeshna Mitra is our speaker for today, and she's the lead of academics and research team at IIHS and also one of the faculty members for the Urban Fellows Programme. In today's session, she will take you through campus life and internships. If you have any questions, please drop them in the Q&A box. Sudeshna will answer them towards the end of the session. Thank you. Over to you, Sudeshna.
Thank you so much, Soumya. Good evening, everybody. It's really nice to see you all here. And some of you may have attended the earlier webinars also. We thought we would round them all out and sort of, talk more in a more relaxed way about what you can expect when you come here in terms of campus life, what you can expect when you move out from here, which is the internships part of the program. And so, today I'm basically going to speak to you today about those two things, right? So, what you can see when you come here and what, you take at the end of the program. So, Soumya has already told you that the way to communicate on this kind of platform right now would be the best way would be to put anything you have, comments or questions into the Q&A. I'll pick them up at the end of my session. I'll take about 15 to 20 minutes, give you an overview. And then anything you want to ask, more details about or anything you want to clarify, I'm happy to elaborate more on what I have said. So I'll get started by, sort of saying that this is an Urban Fellows Program. We set it up very specifically as a program which is going to talk about urban life. How do you address urban challenges? How do you see urban challenges? If you come from a particular disciplinary background, if you're an architect and you go out into the street, you will see built form. You will see the buildings. If you come from a sociology background, then you will see the people on the streets. You will see how they're dressed. You will see how they're interacting with one another. You will see those dynamics. So even the same street that we look at, depending on how we've been trained to think about it, we often see different things on that street. And when we kind of bring a program like this together, which is talking about urban life and urban challenges and what you can do to intervene to think about those kinds of issues, we talk to this from an urban location. What I mean by that is that this whole program is going to come out of a place which is very clearly a city campus. We are located at the heart of the city. And many of the things that you will do as a part of the class, we will take you out into the city, right? You will walk around, we will walk around with you. And, that learning, there's going to be the class-based learning that you will have. But a good 30 to 40% of that learning is going to be by going out into the city. And it really helps to have a campus which is a city campus, which is like, right in the middle of things that are happening. Like right down the street, you have a place which is one of the oldest neighborhoods of the city. If you want to study residential or you want to study retail, there are all these kind of histories, people's histories of trees, histories of retail markets, which is right there for you to, interact with and learn from. So that's, I just want you to kind of, sort of condition yourself to start thinking along that. This is that kind of an embedded program. The other way that you will get embedded into the program is in terms of those 30 or 40 people that you will end up with, the cohort itself. When we have said that this is an interdisciplinary program, that it is a program in which you will not only learn from us, but you will learn from everybody else who is sitting next to you in the class itself. That's a very strong part of it. You will not only learn together, you will also live together. So the campus is inside the city, but 15 to 30 minutes away from the campus is also where you will all stay together in a shared accommodation and basically see each other even after class. You will, in past years, from past fellows, if some of you know them already or are getting in touch with them, please do ask them about how debates that start in class end up in, that midnight heated conversation between class members where people are like, this is what I think, this is what's happening. And it becomes part of that learning trajectory as well. Get to know people really well. Most people who have been here say that they made friends for life, even though it was such a short program. And so that becomes very much part of the campus life as well. You get to know people really, really well. And what we encourage you to kind of find out about each other is not just the fact that how you can work together in a team, but how can you have like a proper debate in which you don't see eye to eye and figure out a way to work through that, right? So it's a part of being in a world which is very complicated. It is what you will have to do in your workspace once you kind of go out from this kind of a program as well. It's the kind of life skills that you learn, and no one can teach it to you in a class or teach it to you in from a book. So we do kind of think about this program in that 360-degree sort of a way. And part of it is being made by the people who come into the program itself, right? The learnings that you carry out of the class as well. So keep that in mind. The other thing, which is perhaps new for some of you, maybe not so new for some of you, is the kind of faculty access that you get here. We believe, firstly, you will see a lot of us because this is an intense program, which means that 6 to 7 hours in a day, you will be in different forms of learning, either in the class or in the field or in a lab or, doing some sort of an exercise, which basically means that you will get a lot of face time with the faculty anyways. But even above that, even over and above that, we have something called office hours, which basically means that because we are all in one building, you get to talk to people, you get to talk to a very diverse set of faculty about, from the smallest, most operational kind of problems, like I didn't understand this in class, to what do I want to do in life? And I have been thinking that I want to take this kind of a route, but here is another thing that I'm thinking about. My parents want me to do this. My friends tell me to do this. How do I solve this? And those kinds of open-ended questions, interactions and openness is not really something that is very common in a lot of higher education institutions in India. We take great interest in developing that kind of porosity, where there isn't necessarily this huge barrier between students and faculty, and to approach someone. We actually prefer if people don't call us sir and ma'am. You will find, many people here, you'll be calling your faculty by your first name. But that also doesn't mean that you are not respecting them. So there is a way of sort of respecting someone who gives you a lot of their time as well. And so that kind of an interaction is also something that we take very strongly. Like, it's part of our ethos here in terms of the pedagogy, in terms of the learning, in terms of how we teach, right? So that kind of an access. Another thing that a lot of people come and ask us about, and face a difficulty in terms of transitioning, is language, right? In the world we live in the world of practice and research, English is still sort of the most transacted language. And so we want you to have a sufficient grasp on that. I've spoken in my past webinar also, and other faculty would have also spoken on it, that when you're applying for the application, we do accept, if you want to write in some other language which you're more familiar with, you're most welcome to do so, because we are very open to, people with different kinds of, comfort level with different kinds of languages, to express what they really feel, what they've really gone through, what they really want, that story that they really want to tell. Sometimes you can only tell it in that one language. So we're very open in that when in the application process, and we encourage that in the class. But we also realize that the world of work and practice, a lot of transactions happen in English. So we do want you to have a certain level of a grasp on how to present yourself and your work in the best possible light when it comes to English. If you need language support help for that, we actually have a word lab. We actually have faculty who will sit with you, and we give language support to people who would like to do that. But at the same time, we also are open. So for example, if outputs have to be produced and you want to use, some of the outputs, you want to produce them in other languages. Our students have done this in the past. And so that flexibility is there, that, while that transactional capability has to be there, you can also express yourself if you want, with what really works best. This is also with us knowing that a lot of urban practice out there actually doesn't happen in English. The kind of practice that you might be thinking about may actually be done better in some other language. And if that is the case, then you get a full, and if you understand, if we see that that's where you're headed, then you get a lot of freedom to then, develop that kind of a language of expression. If your trajectory is leading you to a practice where some other language is going to be is going to be the language of work for you. So language support is again something, but remember, in terms of the support that you get, it is going to be on the English side, while we're open to other languages as well. I also want to take a little bit of a moment. The other thing that a lot of students find different here is the library access. We have spent years in trying to build out, I think, one of the most comprehensive urban libraries that there are, in this country. And you will have full access to that while you're here. But more so, as you become alumni of this program, you have lifetime access to the library here. So this is also something that we think that, as you become part of the UFP, the IIHS set of people, the library is something that we want to share as a resource, not just for the time that you're here, but even going forward. So all alumni at IIHS basically have lifelong access to the IIHS library all through their life. They can come back anytime they want. Another aspect that is a little bit different, unique, that we have tried to curate here is the masterclasses. Now, what we mean by masterclasses is not so much a teaching kind of a component of the program. The masterclasses are basically people who have spent 20, 30 years, building a certain research trajectory or a practice trajectory. These may be activists, they might be heads of industry, they might be a very famous planner or an architect. They may be a government official. They might be an IAS person. They may be somebody who has started, livelihood or enterprise development actions for things. You can see a full list of the kind of people who have come into the master classes. And what we ask them to do when they come in is tell you about what kind of personal decisions did they take to craft their own personal trajectories. We don't ask them to talk about the urban. They will do a little bit of that as well, or about issues. But we want them to tell how did they do it. Because, the more examples that you see of how people crafted their life trajectory helps as a part of the learning and teaching process as well. That, okay, here are some choices for me. These are some of the things that are open. Because most of the time when we think about this is what I want to do, we are, unfortunately sort of held back by a lack of imagination in seeing examples in our friends and family circles of what people have done, of what decisions they took. But if a place for higher education can open that up, can open the doors, and you hear more stories of how other people did it, what kind of choices did they make, how did they craft last 20 years, 30 years, 40 years of their life, it just opens up more ways to think of how you can be. So this too for us is not just like the campus life, but basically what does it mean to become part of the UFP network of people? So the masterclasses is an important part of how we structure the campus life. So now I'm going to take a little bit of time and go to internships, right? Which is basically the last 2 months. We'll have 7 months of in-class teaching, and then you will have 2 months of internship at the end of the program. So I'll talk about that a little bit more because it's our way of sort of, a lot of different kinds of people come to us. Some of them come and say that, no, I have done an architecture degree or an urban, some sort of an urban studies degree or an urban sociology degree or something. And I feel there was something missing when we're looking at these kinds of issues that are there. And the thing, it goes so far, but it doesn't go far enough. Or I have done this, but it's not enough. I've done law, but I want to use law to look at urban issues. I have done media, but media and communications, while it's great as a discipline, I want to focus it to write about urban stories. I want to do urban stories. I want to make a documentary film, like all these kinds of. So the internships is actually our place for you to test these different kind of practice and research trajectories that you might pick up after the program. And it's a nice, relatively short, but still, substantial enough for you to get a flavor of what it might mean for you to, go into this thing that is only in your head and only in your imagination at this particular point in time. So what I mean by that is that, as many of you have already gone onto the IIHS website, you see the kind of work we do. We do a lot of different kinds of life, on housing, on land, on climate, on the SDGs, there's a whole range of work that's happening here. Out of all of this, we have curated, upwards of like 700 organizations that are parts of our network. And these are the people that we reach out to when we want to place our students. And we look at two things. One is, what is the fellow themselves interested in? And like I said, that people want to do different things. They want to specialize in what they want to do, or they want to shift a little bit from what they're doing and use law, but look at it at urban issues. So because we have such a large network of organizations, we are able to find that fit where fellows are interested in doing something, but also what the organization is looking for. So where that overlap is the best, that basically becomes the pool of the internship organizations. The internship process is also very critical to learn, again, another set of life skills. How do you present yourself in the world out there? You want to do something, great. But how do you communicate that to the world outside, that they should pick you, to do what this transition thing that you want to do or you want to specialize in? How are you thinking through things? How are you analyzing? How are you problem solving? How are you presenting yourself? So we encourage every single fellow to interview in multiple places. So we have, over the years, we've seen people who are super shy at the beginning of the process. By the end of the process, they know exactly how to present themselves, what to say, which part of the CV to highlight, read the right things before they're doing the interview. It's a very, very nice kind of a learning process during the internship thing as well. And, we had like an excellent sort of experience this time also. Everybody had multiple offers from organizations. And the reason why I'm sort of, highlight, even though this is an internship, what happens is that the process of interview is often so stringent that 30 to 40% of the people, if they do well in their internships, if they're able to prove themselves during that 2-month period, they have been able to translate that to a full-time job. So while we don't guarantee placements, we do everything to basically teach you how to get into the job market through this internship process. And most of the time, many of the organizations, if the fit is good, you put in the hard work during those 2 months, it gets your foot in the door, and that can translate into sort of a long-term job, right? It's that difference. You might have heard that parable that's out there, right? Do you give a man a fish, a hungry person a fish, or do you teach him how to fish? And our philosophy basically through that internship process is that we teach you how to fish. So if after this you want to still apply for jobs, you have been through a very curated process where we tell you, pay attention. This is the kind of stages that you're going through so that you can replicate those stages for yourself and do it in that structured sort of a way and get entry into the kind of organizations you're looking for as well. So the internships has always been like this very, very critical part of the program. And just to kind of give you a flavor, you can go again onto the website and see that there is a whole set of organizations, but just to give you a sense that there are at least 3 ways that we, curate this list. One is you will have a set of like public organizations, they can be private consultants, that's public-private mix. There's government bodies also. There are think tanks, there are research organizations, there are NGOs, there are CSOs, there are activist organizations, citizen membership, citizen organizations, membership-based groups. So within that public-private spectrum, we have a whole range across that. Another way that we curate it is that, the sector. Are they working on housing? Are they working on water and sanitation? Are they working on infrastructure? Are they working on land? Right? So there's some people will want to work like sectorally and thematically. So that's another kind of curation that happens. The third kind of curation that happens is in terms of discipline. Like I said, there's somebody coming from, say, a law degree and wants to work on urban issues. There are very few law firms that are there in India who do that overlap. Okay? Or you are somebody who's interested in climate change, but are looking at it very specifically through a certain kind of intervention in water and sanitation, in groundwater revival, okay, or lake revival projects. There are very few set of organizations that do that overlap of like sectoral interest in the kind of work. So that's the third kind of curation that we do. So which, if you take together, it gives you a nice diversity of, do you want to work in, say, an NGO space that works on water and is, has a focus on, say, media and communications, right? Like this kind of curation becomes possible. So these are all things to think about. And this is what I mean, that when we take you through that process in a very structured way, it's not about just like generally sending your CVs out to a whole bunch of people and finding employment. There's a lot to think about in this process. And we break that down and we unpack that during the internship process. So you know how to do that when you do it for yourself, right? So I'm going to stop there now. And the one last thing, which is very important part of the campus life, they're invisible, but very much a part of what's going on here, is the alumni network. The UFP alumni network is just amazing. It's a relatively small group of people, but everybody goes over and beyond. And many of you may already have been in touch with them and maybe already know just how much time they will take to tell you what questions do you have, how to think about things. And when going forward, they are also the people who will help you get the foot in the door through various organizations for placements, for internships, and in general, as you kind of go forward, because the world of urban practice, while it is a huge, complicated, challenging, realm, there is also so many people working on it. It's still only a handful of people, and we definitely need more people. But you very quickly you realize that to navigate that space, you have a sort of a pre-made set of friends and alumni who will help you navigate that space, right? So that is actually a very important part of sort of the extended campus life that is also part of this program. So with that, I'm going to stop, and please do put your questions in and I will pick them up one by one. I will take the first question that is there. It's not exactly a question, but this question, I'm sorry, but this, we have kind of had these questions from the very first year that we started. And it's always very hard to kind of hold the line on the age cutoff. But unfortunately, it's the one thing that we have no discretion on. It's something that is set that this is the cutoff date and you have to follow it. It's something that right from the beginning of the program, we've kind of had that date, which means that for two things. One is that we don't have any discretion to begin with, so the rest of it is hypothetical. The second is that we can't make an exception for one person when we haven't made an exception for many people down the years. So it just wouldn't be fair to all of them either. So this is one thing that I'm really sorry about, but unfortunately, this is not one thing that we can move on about, the cutoff date and the age thing. Are there other questions? So one question: if I want to take leave for a particular work, what can you get? So the leave concept is really not much of a concept in UFP at all. One, we'd ask that this is the only thing that you can do. So if you have any kind of a side work or a second job or another educational program that you're doing by correspondence, we don't encourage it, we don't allow it. So if you are doing it, it has to stop if you get admission and when you get admission. Because there is so much that the program asks of you, the number of hours that you spend in class, and then what is required after the class. If you are not spending that, then you're basically not giving enough to the program. So, which shows in outputs, in your level of engagement with your peers, and it doesn't work. I mean, we get so many applications that it's worth not having someone who is not going to give 100% to the program. We would much rather somebody who does. So that's the first thing. If it is an absolutely like a medical emergency, then of course you have leave, and we will take permission from the faculty and go. But through the calendar year, there's a lot of breaks, right? Like after you have reading weeks, you have the Diwali break, you have a winter break. So if you need to go and see family, there is sufficient time within the calendar, designated time within the calendar to kind of do that. But when the calendar is running, other than like incredible, like, basically medical emergency kind of situations, we don't really go for a leave kind of a concept. If it's like basically it's like a case-to-case thing. If it's like some emergency, like you said, it was a particular work, if it's like some emergency kind of a work, then we will look at it. Like it has to be considered, but it's definitely those one-off exceptional cases. Next question is, what are the elective subjects and do they change every year? They do. There is some level of change that happens in the elective topics every year, because it depends somewhat on faculty availability. Like every year, there's little shifts in faculty availability. Broadly, there are about 12 electives that are offered across 4 cycles, which basically means in each cycle, you have a choice of between, like you choose one elective out of 3. So every person does 4 electives at the end of it, out of a total pool of 12 electives. If you want to see a full list of the electives that have been taught, go to the website. There's a full list of like what is all there. Some things have been taught quite consistently every year. But like I said, that there might be like 1 or 2 electives every year that may be offered or not offered depending on the faculty's availability. But you'll get the list on the website, so do take a look at it. It's kind of the spread where some of it is going to be more theory oriented, theory or concept oriented. Some of it is going to be sectoral. For example, the theory, this thing you'll have the Southern Urban Theory, maybe one kind of a thing. Then you have another set of electives which are sectoral. So you have a housing elective, you have a water and sanitation elective, right? You have an energy elective in different years. And then the third will be a thematic kind of a set of electives. So for example, what are governance issues in large infrastructure projects in India? right? But that's a thematic kind of an entry point. The course that I teach, for instance, many years I didn't teach it last year, but urban and regional economic development, in which I talk about, basically land and how does someone who's not an economist think about economic development. And because all of it is sort of predicated on land, my entry point is land. But it's a question of sort of thinking of economic development, but not as an economist. That falls between the thematic and the theoretical, right? So you have basically these three buckets, but you basically have about 12 electives that fall across these three buckets. Are there any other questions? What will be the place of the internships like? Oh, it can be in anywhere. The internships are all over India. Many of them are in Bangalore as well. But that also is something that we take into account when people are shortlisting which places they want to apply to. That if you, like, people have sometimes a great interest, I want to work in X, Y, or Z place, then they choose this thing, or I don't want to go to North India, I don't want to go to South India, I don't want to go, like, etc. Some people have like a thing and they say I don't want to go anywhere, which is hard. I don't know why, but we try as much as possible to kind of accommodate those things. But the internships are definitely in Bangalore and all over the country. And the one thing that we do is that either the organization themselves will give you a stipend as a part of the internship. Whenever there is no stipend from the organization, we have a fund internally at IIHS. So everybody in the class gets one basic level of money, whether you're getting an internship stipend from the organization or not. Because we know that if you're living, in whatever city, you will have expenses. So we make sure that there is at least like a base level of parity as far as, how much money you have during the internship period. So, yeah. So Nikita, it's similar to what I just said. It's a much more sort of a long drawn out process. The first stage is when the fellows give their preferences of like which are the kind of places they want to interview at, and it's a long list, right? It's like say 10 places. Then they interview at all of the places. Their CVs get sent to all of them, and then the organization themselves will shortlist. So most people end up interviewing at about 4 to 5 places that they're interested in interviewing at. So we try to balance the two. What is the fellow interested in, and what will the organization also looking for? Just because somebody wants to work there, organizations may not want them, right? Like they're also looking for a certain set of qualifications and skills. So we try to do the best of both worlds, which is why we ask you to start with sort of a longer list, and then organizations choose out of them. So like this year also, most people interviewed at least 4 to 5 organizations that they wanted to be interviewed at, and then got 2 or 3 offers. Most of them had multiple offers from 2 or 3 organizations that they want to go to. So the fellows' choice is very much part of the process, but you still have to clear the interview. Right? So it's both. I'm from an architecture background, and I want to pursue masters in the field of urban economics or governance or policy making, but I'm not clear about the specialization yet. Is UFP the right place for me? Yes, I think so. I mean, my sense is that you have to have a good reason as to why you want to move from an architecture background to urban economics or urban governance or policy making. Sometimes it's not clear that what will an urban economics degree give you or an urban governance degree give you. But what is driving you to make this shift? That question or that inquiry or that inquisitiveness you should be able to write about. And that's something that I think the UFP will definitely is a place where you can have, like I said, you can, not only sort of pursue that in the classes that you take, but also in conversations with faculty in office hours or, through the course of the year, and figure out with alumni, etc., that what is it that's there that you want, firstly, to be able to articulate it much more clearly, and then sort of see a fit in terms of what programs are out there. So yeah, I think that sounds like a good place to be in to apply to the program, definitely. Any other questions? Okay, I don't think there are any more questions. What will happen after the internship? Some 30-40% of the people go ahead and convert their internship to long-term job placements in the same organizations. So they transition into a kind of a longer-term placement with the same organizations. Others, use that opportunity to then, start interviewing in other places. This much I can tell you, that every single batch, like I said, that placement process, we don't officially take guarantee for, but we hold your hand through the entire process, unofficially and otherwise. And so far, across all of the batches, we don't let go until every single person has been placed. Like whether that is like just calling up and checking with them what's happening, where you're applying, and kuch mila, kitna mila, kya mil raha hai, all of that kind of stuff. And everybody who is looking for a job has a job. So that's what happens after the internship. You basically go out into the world, into research or practice or whatever it is that your own trajectory is. Okay, my sense is that I think we're done with the questions. There's also, like I can see 9 people. I feel like pretty much everybody has asked. So maybe we can close this session early and, just apply if you have any questions. There are phone numbers on the website which you can call and get clarifications. You can email. There are email addresses which are there on the website. Again, if you have any questions, we're constantly monitoring them. So if you have any questions that you didn't ask right now, or anybody you know who's applying has a question, point them towards the phone numbers and the email addresses. We are happy to respond to them. We will respond to them. And even during the application process, we're getting stuck in some stage or some, like if you have a technical glitch or something, write in, don't sit on it. Happy to problem solve it with you. And yes, go to the website. There's lots of resources on there in terms of like everything that I've spoken about today as well. Like you can get more details, videos, just pictures of what is happening around the building. So do go in there and like take a look and point to others who may be that you may know who are also might have similar questions. Soumya?
Yes, Sudeshna, thank you so much. To all our participants, as you all are aware, the last date to submit your applications for the Urban Fellows Programme for the academic year 2022-23 is 11th of April. So I will share the email IDs and contact numbers that Sudeshna just now mentioned. One moment. Okay, so you can visit our website www.iihs.co.in or www.urbanfellows.ihs.co.in. This is where you'll find the applications where you can apply for, And if you have any problem, any issue while filling in the information or while submitting the application forms, you can always write to us at ufp.info@ihs.ac.in or ufp.info@ihs.co.in. You can also reach out to us directly on these contact numbers 99012 55788 or 96064 84336. Please make a note of these email IDs and contact numbers. And I request you all to submit your applications before the deadline.
All right. Thank you, everybody. I'm going to say bye now. And so, Samya.
Sudeshna, I think there is one question remaining, if you could answer that.
If you don't get selected as a fellow, can you apply for any other course? So yes, IHS has a couple of different other things also, which you could look at. We have MOOCs. So if you go into that first website address, the ihs.co.in. So we have basically several sort of those large MOOC kind of programs that are there, which are online. They are hosted on edX. One of them is sort of the Sustainable Cities course, which you'll find the link on our website, so you can join from there. So there are some courses like that which are online, and you can definitely sign up for them. The other things are that we have many public events, right? There are talks that happen at IHS, which it's open to the public. There are public lectures that we have, like various faculty come in from around the country, even outside the country. Those are all open to the public. There are public events such as, we host Urban Lens Festival, which is a film festival. We hold a writing festival. So that's there's like through the year. I mean, again, if you look at the IHS website, you'll see that there are all of these sort of public events and workshops, etc., that's happening through the year, as well as like our sort of online courses. So you can definitely sort of see if any of that is of interest to you as well. But I would also say that please don't say this right now. How do you know you're not going to get selected as a fellow? Put in the application, then we'll see. All right, I will say bye now, and good luck, and hope to see many of you in the application files as I start reading them. Good luck. Bye.
We once again thank all our participants for taking part in today's session, and thank you for your time. Good day. Bye.